think for me personally, my first experience of storytelling was the stories about love and relationships. And obviously that's very universal. So I got off kind of easy my first go around because that story did resonate with everyone across the globe when it comes to love and relationships. So I think that's another topic that is very universal.
I also think like growing up, especially so growing up, your parents tell you a story, so someone tells you a story. So what I always try to do is as quickly as you can, if I can convince you of the story I'm telling, like as we're talking now, do you know what I mean? Like the story should be compared as like, everybody gather, let me tell you a story. And that moment is always so special that just keep us glued in. And also at the point, you know what I mean? Like there's just something fascinating about, let me tell you a story. I mean, before we even started, we're sharing stories, just around the corner. So everybody always has a story. So my obsession as a filmmaker is like, how do you tell the story to keep everybody glued?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think going along with that, just telling stories and kind of making sure we have some sort of representation, even what you were saying, it's not just like speaking a different language. You could be speaking a different language in the same country, across different cultures, across different regions. How do you feel about like how filmmakers can use storytelling to challenge stereotypes and show underrepresented community? Or how have you been able to do that in your own work?
Yeah.
Not youth to sport,
centered in a culture, like very not apologetic, not trying to say, oh, I'm sorry, da. It's like, and especially in Ife, which is obviously it's Yoruba. So it's like, these are the stories, and we're gonna tell them the stories with our chest. So I think for me as a young person, I never had that thing of like, oh, I apologize for the story, because a lot of the images that I was greeted with were positive and very, very strong. So that's just been like from the jump. Our culture is just central. Like there's no, like I don't have a, you know what I mean? Like but that's linked to the fact that those are the images that greeted me as a child.
See, it's, being here in Hollywood for 21 years, you see where you're not always able to tell those stories. You're not going to get greenlit. They're not going to say, yes, let me do this series about, this small African village. We want to know more Metropolis, New York, and white faces and this or other cultures. So it's, it depends on what step of the process that you're in. Are you in the decision making? Are you a studio exec? Are you the writer who is pushing and pushing? There's so many great scripts out there that haven't been even looked at or read or seen. And so those are the stories. That's why I like doing independent films and smaller budget projects. I'll do the big budgets here, but I like that because those stories tend to be more true, and we're not waiting for that green light by some old man who, is dictating what we're seeing on TV. There's going to be a switch now, of course, with the climate that we're in now. But it's going back to more family friendly and things of that, which is, everyone's new predictions and stuff. But it is harder to tell the most authentic stories that you want to unless you're really in those places. So doing the smaller indies and digital platforms and things like that, you're able to tell a lot of more of those stories, and Jen able to kind of shine light that way. I'm giving that story, and then I'll have to grieve.
I think that's very important. So, yep. Anyone else have a comment or a thought on that?
I forgot the question. He really. Who was like me?
You got so into her response.
Yeah.
No.
Is that responsibility, right?
Yeah. What kind of responsibility, if any, do you find? And then how do you balance that with also making work, entertaining?
I mean, I think for me at first, I didn't really care about the responsibility because it was a job. But when I made it a career and I started to get acknowledged for the work I was doing, then I took more responsibility because now people are watching, they're expecting, and most importantly, my mama, she loves my work. She follows my work, and she's proud of what I do. So that's when it became more, okay, you might think a certain thing, but just think it through before you just put it out. Because by the time I come from TV world first before I got into the film, so I already had that production experience in TV, and I had that, the accolades and, the followers and the people that was in my circle before I got into film. Then getting into film was a totally different beast. A lot more responsibility, a lot more control. And that's when I really found that I really need to pay attention and think my writing through, because you just never know who is going to touch, who is going to rub the wrong way. And as a human being, I do take that into consideration, which some artists and writers don't, because it's all about their work. And if they don't get it, they don't get it. But I like to balance both sides of it, because at the end of the day, we up here talking about our work, and people want to have questions, and you want to be able to look someone in the face and be like, I'm proud of what I've done,
Getting into a little bit more of your work, we have a lot of people who are storytellers here as well. Would love to hear that. What's the biggest creative risk you've taken, and what did it teach you?
How is it?
What was the biggest creative risk? I think doing my film, I did a psychological horror film last year, and I think the hardest part of that project was, well, one is when you have a lot of creative friends, you can't always talk to them, because, oh my gosh, I sent my script to like 5 different people, and by the time it came back with notes, I had a unicorn, I had a dragon in my script. It was everyone had their own ideas, which I respected, but at the end of the day, it's your project, it's your vision, and you have to go with what you wrote, and you have to stand by it. And there was a scene where it was a little touchy, sensitive topic, and even during the casting process, I put a little description of what the scene was, and I had people responding back to me, and it turned into a therapy session, because it took them to a dark place that they experienced in their life. And I was like, I'm sorry, this is a character, this is a role, but I still gave them that consideration of hearing them out and listening to them. And I think creatively, I wasn't going to change my script because of that, because I think it was still my vision and my creativity, what I wanted to display, but I was still mindful of that. And I think that was just the hardest part of getting to that final stage before I hit end and got ready to put it out. And even doing the film screening, which is why I met Olah. Hey, Olah. I was in that theater just nervous for these certain scenes, because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I didn't know how people was going to respond, but it was something that as a writer and, creator, you just have to live with it, good or bad. So I think that's the hardest part, is just kind of getting a critique and constructive criticism from your peers.
Yeah, I've been sitting here trying to figure out the risk. I don't know. I don't know the big risk. I feel like every job, there's, different obstacles and things that you have to overcome. Do it. And it's great when you do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think, for me, in terms of exactly, it's more the minute you choose this profession.
Yes. This profession. Yes. This profession.
The minute you choose this profession, you're already a risk. This category, you know what I'm saying? And I think for me, the thing was, there were two things. When I started out, this older filmmaker said, look, if you think about it as a marathon, not a 100-meter dash, then you stand a better chance. I was like, oh yeah, marathon, I get that. And then I think that the hardest thing is, you spoke about sending your scripts out to people. I think it's the fight against the no's. Because everybody's quick to tell you no. And so my thing was always like, I'm not gonna let these no's bring me down. Because if you beat it, you long enough, there's always somebody telling you there's somebody better than you. Right? You say, hey, well, would you like to read my script? I would love to read the script, but you know who else's script we're reading? But you know what I mean? So for me, and I've been here a long time, and my thing is that I never want to be like that. Yeah. So that's the daily meditation. To never get to that place, which you fully understand. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You fully, yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, but And so that we come back to what we're talking about here is the stories. It's the stories that give you joy. It's the stories you always have to tap back into.
Always when I hit you back when I have something else. So I would even with that. So you can say no all you want to.
Yeah.
But eventually, I mean, I'm just lucky though.
I used to say, in the words of the great American philosopher, on to the next one. On to the next.
I'm circling back. Yeah, we have something to do, right? It's not the same thing. You already said it under that. Cool. I'll send that somewhere else, but I'm gonna keep coming back to.
Sometimes those no's, they hurt.
Be educated,
And you make it because there's something, like we said, there's something for everyone. So you just have to make sure you're pitching your project to the right lane. If it's Nickelodeon, Disney-esque, then that's places you should send it. Don't send that to 824 to produce your project. Like you have to align it with the right places. And that'll up you.
Absolutely. I think the themes go across all kinds of, countries. So I think that's all the time we have for this panel. Thank you all so much. Wonderful responses.